The winter 2021 anime season is here, and the typical thing for an anime channel to do is to go through the My Anime List entries for all the shows, read their summaries, and see which ones seem interesting. Other people might give shows 1 episode or even 3 episodes to make an impression. That got me thinking, what if you had to decide what you wanted to watch from the season based on just the first minute? So I looked at a number of shows from the season that have started airing, and evaluated how much interest they generate for the show based on the first 60 seconds of screen time, without reading any synopses ahead of time. Just a few notes before I begin, I won't be including any shows that are continuations of existing things, as I will either have a bias coming into it if I've seen the prior seasons, or it'll be pointless to start partway through the story if I haven't. Also, for any shows that included the opening song in their first minute, I skipped it and focused only on the actual show, as I think openings can generate a lot of unearned hype. In addition, I want to note that this won't necessarily determine what I actually watched this season, but it'll help me give shows a chance that I wouldn't normally watch. So without further ado, here are my impressions of some of the winter 2021 anime based on the first minute. First up is Horimiya. This show caught my attention immediately, with its strong voice acting in the first minute, especially the voice of the teacher. I also really like the art style and character designs, including the range of hairstyles and hair colors of the students. The music is light but a bit jazzy at the same time too. I didn't get much of a sense of the plot, only that it's summer vacation and the teacher is kind of weird, but overall the show definitely piqued my interest. Next is Mushoku Tensei Isekai Ittara Honki Das, or Jobless Reincarnation. You can tell it's an isekai by the title and the fact that it opens with someone having been hit by Truck-kun. Not much happens in the first minute here. We flash in and out of darkness as we get an exposition dump through dialogue about the accident. There's also some strange voices we hear fade in and out. The animation is fine, but there's nothing particularly flashy either. Since the isekai market is so saturated, I probably hold it to a higher standard, but I wasn't particularly drawn in by anything here. The third show is Kaifuku Jutsushi no Yarinaoshi, aka Redo of Healer. I will admit I've already heard talk of this show since it's pretty infamous, but I'm judging solely based on the first minute, and that minute screams edgy show by itself. It starts off with some ecchi images, a fire, and a speech about changing fate that turns out to be a dream sequence, after which the protagonist hears voices in his head and a very pure-looking girl comes in. As for the visual and sound elements, I didn't find anything particularly compelling. I feel like this is the type of show people will either love or hate, and I'll probably watch it just to see if it can deliver on the edginess in a satisfying rather than cliché way. Next is Kumo desu ga Nani ka, or So I'm a Spider, So What? Based on that title and the picture, I was not expecting the show to start off in a school setting, so that intrigued me. I was also immediately drawn into the look of the show. The colors were muted and the animation seemed to have a bit of a haze around it. I also thought the sound design was very good, especially the noises preceding the giant explosion in the school. Sadly, I didn't get to the spider part of this anime in the first minute, but it made me want to watch more to get to that point. After that, I looked at Ore dake Haireru Kakushi Dungeon, or The Dungeon Only I Can Enter, which starts with an overview of the most generic-looking fantasy anime city ever. Then it zooms in and goes through a slideshow of various types of dungeons before moving on to what appears to be the protagonist inside one. I liked the narrator's voice and the detail that was put into the dungeon designs that only appeared for a second each, as well as some of the angles on the animation. There wasn't anything that really wowed me, though I might watch more if people say it's good. The next anime is Jaku-Chara Tomozaki-kun, aka bottom tier character Tomozaki. This starts out with 2 characters playing a cute parody of Super Smash Bros. From the first minute, I get the vibe that this will be an anime that understands and respects video games rather than being a cringy cash grab, though that could always change. I like the protagonist's voice a lot too. It's melancholy and raspy, and helps to set the stage for the comparison between him and the all-star class leader next to him. I'm interested to see if the show handles its subject matter well. Let's switch over to Kemono Jihen. The first thing I noticed about this one was the voice acting, which was very emphatic and it felt like everybody was giving their all. I also like the character designs, especially things like the contrast between Yat-chan's small pupils and Dorotabo's big red eyes. It also immediately sets up a good contrast between Yachan's proudness and the group of kids flattering him, and Dorotabo humbly working in the field. I didn't get much of a sense of what the show will be about, but I am interested. Next up is, suppose a kid from the Last Dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town. And I'm not going to say the Japanese title because it's even longer. With that kind of title, you can immediately tell it's a light novel adaptation. The first minute of this show is just a child stalking and then getting beat up by a rabbit with horns. There's also a noise in it that gave me a bit of a jump scare compared to the opening few seconds of tranquility. I like the backgrounds, but the animation looks a bit jumpy overall. But it definitely looks better than Berserk 2016, which was made by the same studio. I'd probably watch more. The next anime is Skate the Infinity. The animation in this one is so fluid, which makes sense considering it's made by Studio Bones, one of my favorites. There's a wide variety of camera angles, and I like the way it starts out with the slow zoom out of the protagonist's skateboard. The show also doesn't beat around the bush and immediately helps us start getting to know the main character, equating his passion for skateboarding to some of the things that other people pursue most, like wealth, popularity, and good grades. I don't normally watch sports anime, but this got my attention quickly. I took a look at Wonder Egg Priority next, which sounds like it could be the title of a JoJo arc. It's by Cloverworks, the same studio as Horimiya, and this is another show where I was immediately drawn in by the character design, with the heterochromatic girl with blue hair. There's also a lot of detail in the background, and the show is interesting in that it doesn't have any dialogue in the first minute. We just watch a girl find a dead firefly in the street and bury it. Of all the shows so far, this one stood out to me the most as doing things differently from the norm, so I'll definitely be watching more. The next up is 2.43 Seien Koko Danshi Volleyball, or Seien High School Boys Volleyball Team. I haven't watched Haikyuu, so I don't really have a frame of reference for what a good volleyball anime should be like. I liked the upbeat music and the fact that we got some action shots at the start. But while the player's animation was good, as expected of David Production, I felt like the 3D ball looked kind of awkward. Also, the character designs were a bit on the bland side. Overall, I didn't see much that would draw me into it since I'm not into sports, though I might consider giving it a go just because it's David Pro. The second to last show I'll be talking about today is Urasekai Picnic, or Other Side Picnic. I liked the way it opened with a blank blueness that focused into the sky framed by grass, and the way the girl was outlined in the puddle. But it's the contrast between the visuals and the dialogue that most interested me with this one. The girl is talking about dying and whether anyone at school would notice until they realized she wasn't paying tuition. But in the background there's what looks like a ruined train car and electrical tower, which makes it seem like there are more pressing things for her to worry about. I'd like to see more. And finally, I looked at X-Arm. This is definitely the worst of the batch. The animation looks to be incredibly lazy. For example, you can see characters flying across the screen along with bits of debris, but everything is moving as if it's a single layer being dragged around and not independent objects. There's a really ugly color inversion going on, and it appears that the show is going to be primarily 3D animation, which only a handful of studios know how to do well. The music sounds really artificial too, like a digital version of what could probably be a decent orchestral track. I definitely won't be watching more of this one. That's it for this week, but next week I'll be back with the remaining shows from this season I didn't get to in this video. Keep in mind again that these are just initial reactions to the first minute, so there's plenty of room for these shows to get better if I wasn't impressed by them, or drop the ball if I was. I'm Matrix from Matrix A&M, Anime, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, as it will help me out a lot as I try to grow the channel. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.